Greetings and welcome back to room 303 in our Talks with Walt, as we are calling our reading through the deathbed edition of Walt Whitman's Leaves of Grass. We are in Song of the Open Road, now at passage number 9. This will be the beginning of the final movement. As we have said, sometimes we will divide Song of the Open Road into 3 movements. This will be the final movement of 9 through 15. The invitation, allons, he's going to use the French word of exhortation, let's go or let us go. For those of you who follow NFL football, you know that there's any number of players who like to use this phrase, most notoriously or infamously or famously, of course. The great Tom Brady, who loves to scream this as he comes out, let's go. Without realizing it, so many people, when they do this thing of let's go, you know, kind of exuberantly, they're actually paying tribute to Walt Whitman and to Leaves of Grass and to Song of the Open Road. Allons will get used actually 10 times now in the final sections of this poem. Now, the assumption is that you've been following our stuff at learnstrong.net. You've got your own, I hope, your own copy of Leaves of Grass, and you're annotating it as you go. We started with those very early poems of inscriptions, and now we're ready to move on to the Song of the Open Road, passage 9. In fact, we will come back to one of the very earliest set of lines in inscriptions as we meet this poem. In some ways, it appears that Whitman is trying to bring so much of what has come before in Leaves of Grass to come to point of focus in Song of the Open Road. We're going to see this now in these final sections starting at 9 here in a second. Now, just to begin, I want to remind you of a moment in time in Dante's Inferno. We've given full lectures, of course, over all of Divine Comedy at learnstrong.net. You can find those lectures. But do you remember this in passage 24? When the pilgrim Dante's had it with Virgil, and he's like, he sits down, he's like, I'm done, I've had enough. And it will be Virgil who will say, and now we're reading from the CRD version, up on your feet. This is no time to tire, my master cried. The man who lies asleep will never wake in fame, and his desire and all his life drift past him like a dream, and the traces of his memory fade from time like smoke in air or ripples on a stream. Now, therefore, rise, control your breath, and call upon the strength of soul that wins all battles unless it sinks in the gross body's fall. There is a longer ladder yet to climb. This much is not enough. If you understand me, show that you mean to profit from your time. And then, of course, Dante, the writer, will say, I rose and was able to finish the project. Hey, do you remember this from passage 46 of Song of Myself? You are asking me questions. I hear you. I answer, I cannot answer. You must find out for yourself. Sit a while, dear son. Here are biscuits to eat. Here's milk to drink. But as soon as you sleep and renew yourself in sweet clothes, I kiss you with a goodbye kiss and open the gate for your egress hence. Long enough have you dreamed contemptible dreams. Now I wash the gum from your eyes. You must habit yourself to the dazzle of the light of every moment of your life. Long have you timidly waited holding a plank by the shore. Now I will you to be a bold swimmer, to jump off in the midst of the sea, rise again, nod to me, shout, and laughingly dash with the hair. Now, of course, we gave full lectures on all the lines that I just shared. Why does that have anything to do with passage 9 of Song of the Open Road? Let's read it, and then we'll talk about it. Allons, whoever you are, come travel with me. Traveling with me, you find what never tires. The earth never tires. The earth is rude, silent, incomprehensible at first. Nature is rude and incomprehensible at first. Be not discouraged. Keep on. There are divine things well enveloped. I swear to you there are divine things more beautiful than words can tell. Allons, we must not stop here. However sweet these laid up stores, however convenient this dwelling, we cannot remain here. However sheltered this port, and however calm these waters, we must not anchor here. However welcome the hospitality that surrounds us, we are permitted to receive it, but a little while. Now, as we look at this section already, you can get a sense that there's a little bit of a change of the tone in Song of the Open Road. If the opening stanzas are going to introduce us to the open road, say some primary characteristics, now all of a sudden Whitman's going to reach out and invite you to come and to travel with him with, again, this word alone. Let's go. Let us go. No more standing, no more waiting, no more procrastinating. Some students have asked me, how can I overcome procrastination? Well, let's say two things. One, I thought I was going to stop procrastinating, but I kept putting it off. Ha ha, right? One is, of course, we all do it. We all seem to have this tendency to put off. Go back and take a look at our lecture over Hamlet's famous to be or not to be speech from Act 3. But number two, and importantly, there must be a calling. There must be someone that says to you, come on, let's go, let's go. And here it is for Whitman. He says, whoever you are, and notice that inclusivity, right? That democratic inclusivity, come, travel with me. Come along with me. Take the ride with me. And then he says it, traveling with me, you find what never tires. And there it is. When he talks about happiness, that's what he's talking about. That which does not fatigue. Have you felt the fatigue of existence? I'm just so tired all the time. He says, what we're looking for is something that we never ever get tired of and never tires itself. And then he'll say it, the earth never tires. Now, what does he mean by this? Well, one way that we can read this is, there's always something new to learn. There's always something amazing in the study of biology, the study of geology, the study of the earth itself. Of course, he could also mean here, the earth is this amazing kind of experience that doesn't just mean physical, but metaphysical, right? To borrow, of course, from our study of Plato. And then he'll say it, the earth is rude. You'll maybe remember this use of the word rude in A Woman Waits for Me. Press with slow, rude muscle. You'll remember this, rude. Silent, incomprehensible. It'll be used twice and only here in all of Leaves of Grass. Incomprehensible at first. And then he'll capitalize the word nature. Nature is rude and incomprehensible at first. You'll maybe remember Song of Myself, passage 1, nature without check, where he capitalized as well, again, the word nature, right? In other words, there is this thing that cannot be spoken. We've used this term, translinguistic, beyond language, and somehow that captures what Whitman is really all about in Leaves of Grass. He says it though, be not discouraged. Keep on. This is Whitman as teacher, Whitman as encourager, Whitman as the voice of Virgil from Dante's Inferno, passage 24 that we read. Up on your feet, this is no time to tire. Notice, be not discouraged, keep on. And then he'll say it, there are divine things. Guys, I've said this, it's hard not to point these kinds of allusions or literary references out. He's definitely playing with his Dante right here. There is no question, if you are a reader of Inferno and you know that moment, that precious moment in 303, we as 303 students, we memorize this passage, don't we, from passage 24. Why? Because in our lives, there's moments when we're so tired. We're just done. We're ready to sit down in it for all to be over. And what do we need? Well, we need a voice of Virgil to say, oh, no. There's a longer ladder yet to climb. This is not enough. Get up, control your breath, and let's go to work. Here, notice, be not discouraged, keep on. There are divine things well enveloped. In other words, there's more to understand. There's more to enjoy. There are, he says it, divine things well enveloped. I swear to you. Now, you'll maybe remember this, I swear, from Song of Myself, passage 47. Do you remember this one when he says it this way? I swear I will never again mention love or death inside a house, and I swear I will never translate myself at all only to him or her who privately stays with me in the open air. And some of you will go, oh, there's so much of Song of the Open Road right there contained in that line. I swear to you there are divine things more beautiful than words can tell. And for those of you who are hearing this word divine, how about this? Let's take a trip. We're talking about traveling, right? Let's take a trip down memory lane and let's go all the way back to the very first poem of Inscriptions, Oneself I Sing. And as we go back here, do you remember this? He says, of life immense, impassioned, pulse and power, cheerful, for freest action formed under the laws divine. The modern man I sing. This idea of divinity and of the divine and the divine nature, you'll remember in our lectures on Emerson and nature, and the oversoul, this idea of divinity, it's always going to be central to our reading of Leaves of Grass, right? Be not discouraged. Keep on. There are divine things well enveloped. I swear to you, there are divine things more beautiful than words can tell. And this idea of keeping on is a phrase that we'll see again to a full European revolutionary. We'll hear more about it. And then he comes back to the word allons one more time. We must not stop here. And again, obviously, we're back to Song of Myself, passage 46, right? We'll never lie by again. You'll remember that he says, once we start, we never lie by again, right? We must not stop here. And then we're going to get 5 howevers. In other words, there is a tendency to kind of say, well, yeah, but however, and he's gonna play that game with us now. However sweet, these laid up stores, however convenient. By the way, it's the only use in all of Leaves of Grass. I love it when we stumble onto words that only get used one time in all of Leaves of Grass. So it's conscious and intentional choice. However convenient, this dwelling, we cannot remain here, right? And again, taking us back to Inferno 24. However sheltered this port, we're back to sailing. Remember when we did 46, 47 of Song of Myself, we pointed out that the 2 primary word pictures are walking and swimming, or having to do with water. And so here we are back now with this notion of sailing on a port. By the way, put a note to yourself at 3a. We'll come back to this in our study of passage to India. However sheltered this port, however calm these waters, we must not anchor here. Now, of course, no question. Let's put it in our notes at 3a. This is obviously tipping one's hat as well to Homer's Odyssey. Yes? You'll remember that at the land of the lotus eaters, oh man, it's just so good. Let's just do the lotus. Let's just stay stoned. We don't have to work to try and get back to Ithaca. This is fine. We don't need to keep going. And Odysseus is like, no, no, no. We don't get to play that game. We're not sitting down. You'll remember that he ties them up, remember? And he throws them onto the boat. Go back and take a look at LearnStrong.net. We played that game with the Odyssey as well as, of course, the Iliad and the Aeneid. And if you'll think about it, in all 3 of those classic epics, which obviously are kind of foundational to Western thought, in all 3 of those epics, we have those key moments, don't we? When somebody or the hero is ready to just be done. Quit, sit down, I'm done with it. And of course, that famous precious passage in Iliad 9 when Achilles is done sitting there. Remember how he said, singing songs of dead and fallen warriors. You'll remember that set of lines. However shelter this port, however calm these waters, we must not anchor here. However welcome the hospitality that surrounds us, we are permitted to receive it but a little while. Go back to that word ordained from earlier when we talked in Song of Myself, and here permitted to receive it but a little while. And there, of course, is the reason why we started this discussion with Song of Myself, passage 46. Well, what are we going to say now to finish this reading of passage 9 at 2a? Well, we must never be too content, too complacent. There's that fine line between, on the one hand, being content with what you have, but also being always wanting to challenge oneself to aspire to something greater, right? Always dreaming, always hoping for more experiences that are to come. At 2b, I want to point out, and we've been talking around this all the way. I knew we were going to get to this passage, which is why I've kind of held it until now, but I challenge you to go back and just pay attention to the way that Whitman is able to construct the language of energy or enthusiasm, as I'll call it. This use of allons, obviously, is a game that he'll play. But think about the way in which Whitman is able to elicit, right off of the page, energy, enthusiasm. It's almost as if when you begin to read his stuff, you can't help but want to kind of jump up, maybe even read it out loud, tear out a few pages from an old copy that you might have, throw them in your back pocket and go for a nice long walk or run, and then find yourself sitting somewhere at a park or on a rock or whatever, at a beach, and then start reading this stuff out loud, the way he used to play the game with Homer, as we told you in earlier lectures. At 3a, well, of course, the fact that he's referencing this French word, allons, will take us back to Salute Amon, no question, and we've mentioned Dante's Inferno, but I want to mention again Tennyson's Ulysses, right? I mean, how dull it is to pause, to make an end, to rest unburnished, not to shine in youth, as though to breathe were life, life piled on life were all too little, and of what to me little remains, he'll say it, but every hour saved from that eternal silence, something more, a bringer of new things, and violet were for some 3 sons to store and hoard myself, and this grey spirit yearns yearning and desire to follow knowledge like a sinking star beyond the utmost bounds of human thought. This idea of being called, being challenged, right? Come, my friends, 'tis not too late to seek a newer world. This idea is central to this poem, and the energy of this poem, and obviously, as we said in earlier lectures, Tennyson's so influential in the views that Whitman will try to share in Leaves of Grass. Okay, 3B, how are we going to own a passage like this? How can we make it our own? I'll ask you a couple of questions that can maybe help that happen. What was a time in your life when you had to make yourself keep going? You were done. You were ready to sit down. What was a time when you had to move beyond discouragement and keep going? And who was the Virgil voice? Who was the Whitman voice? Who is it that has challenged you to keep traveling? And if you are going to travel, who would you like to travel with? What a great question. I hope that at least one of those people you want to travel with is Walt, who keeps saying, oh man, there's so much more on the open road. Thank you.